And that's the point I want to make finally in these opening remarks is, let's keep the decorum on a civil level. I know, the only thing I know about this whole issue is from the newsfeed. I reside in Ottawa. I followed the story, but not to any specific depth. But I have noticed that there's anger, there's frustration, there's hurt, and you can express that here tonight. But please do it in a civil manner, respectful manner. The floor is going to be open for your questions. When you pose the question, or you finish telling your story, and then you pose the question, please give these folks an opportunity to provide the answer. It may not be the answer you want to hear. They may not have an answer for you at this point. That's why this is the first meeting, just to get everything out so that the folks with Carus know the next step to take, who to bring in at the next meeting. So I thank you for your cooperation in advance. Please be succinct in your comments. If need be, I might jump in and ask you to move on, because we will have a lot of folks who want to speak tonight. Please be aware of your fellow residents that everybody wants to have a chance this evening. I'd like to introduce everybody who's at the panel here tonight. Andy Johnston, the President and CEO. Chris Crockett, the Senior Vice President and CFO. Todd Porter, the Vice President, Commercial. Richard Landheiser, the Vice President of Innovation and Technology. Alan Gibbs, the Vice President of Operations. And Lindsay Bliss, the Vice President of Human Resources and Communications. We have 2 microphones. We'll go through the ground rules again as we get started here in just a few minutes after some opening remarks. So I'd like to introduce at this time the Carus President and CEO, Andy Johnston, to kick things off.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? You guys down the back? Right, thank you. Okay, so I've got some notes here. I just wanted to say a few words. Jay did steal some of my thunder with some of his comments, so thank you, Jay. But I did want to say a few words. Obviously, first of all, you guys are all here this evening because you've got questions and concerns, and you're looking for answers, okay? As a leadership team for Carus, we're here to engage in a conversation and answer as many questions as we can, okay? So we're really looking forward to the dialogue. As Jay said, we might not have all the answers, but we are here to try and be constructive and helpful, so we'll do what we can. And if we can't answer your question, we'll note it and we'll get back to you, okay? But we will do our best. So we really want to hear from you. We really want to listen to you. And I do want to apologize for this fire, right? It's clearly created distress. It was an accident, obviously.
Wasn't the fire specifically?
First time anything like this has happened in the history of Carus. But the reality is it happened, and now we've all got to deal with it, and that's why we're here, okay? I'm also sorry that we didn't do this sooner. Sometimes you think you're communicating, and you're not, right? And we've learned a lesson, and that's why we're here. So I would say this will be the first of a few town halls at least. And outside town halls, I am happy, my leadership team is happy to engage with you guys one-on-one. And see if we can answer your questions and kind of work through this together, okay? So that's our goal. None of you guys know me. I see some Carus employees sitting up the back. Thank you for your support for being here tonight. But for those of you who don't know me, I've been here working for Carus as CEO for 3 years. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for 26 years with my family there. I worked for the same company in Columbus. I've been in the chemical industry my entire career. I can tell you I've been through crises in the past. I've never had to deal with anything like this, so we're all kind of learning on the go here. So, that's just FYI. But my wife and I moved here 3 years ago. I specifically,
Speaks good
when I left my
English.
prior company, I decided, I actually took 6 months off, did a little consulting, did some fun things for a change, you know, the things you never get to do when you're working. So that was a great break. But when I started looking again for the type of company I wanted to join, I had always worked for
Told you
public
they'd drown
companies,
us out
like
for an
big,
hour.
bad public companies, and I really wanted a change. I wanted to stay in the Midwest. I had no intention, no interest in going to the East Coast or going to the West Coast. I wanted to stay in the Midwest, and I wanted to find a good company that had strong Midwestern values that really looked after their employees and the community. And despite the challenges we have today, I still believe Carus was the right company for me, and I still think, you know, we will be a good neighbor and can be a good neighbor as we've tried to be. So, you know, that's that. Again, please, you know, ask all the questions you have. We're here to do the best we can, and let's have a constructive dialogue. We're very happy to engage there. And I think that's it for me. So, Jay.
All right, thank you very much.
Where's the line go?
Again, just to review the ground rules a little bit, this probably isn't going to be much of a positive meeting.
Oh.
This session is not intended to be any kind of a public relations event for Carus Chemical. They need to hear from you, and the communication and the dialogue needs to start, and this is the place. So not necessarily a positive meeting, but let's make this a productive evening tonight, so that these folks know where you are, what you're about, and then they can come back with the next meeting and pick it up again. And again, brevity, be succinct in your comments. 1 or 2 minutes is ideal in terms of the length of your remarks. If you've got a little story you want to tell about how this has affected your home, your family, please do. We'll take one question at a time. We'll get a response from the Carus representatives, and then we'll move on to the next question. And we've got 2 microphones at the end of each aisle here, so you're welcome to queue up, and we'll just go back and forth from one microphone to the other. So you can, the floor is open. We can get started. Whoever wants to speak, come on up and come to a microphone, and we'll get going. There were some questions, I understand, submitted electronically, solicited by Carus from people in the community. Those questions have been brought to me, but I have a feeling that these questions are probably on your mind. So I'll track these. If by chance none of these get asked and we've got some time, I'll pose these to the panel. But the first thing is to hear from you. So don't hesitate, the microphones are on. Please come up and take advantage of this opportunity. And I'll open up just with one of the questions that was submitted.
What don't look like I gotta be.
And I'll give this one to Andy. What is going on with what chemicals are stored at the Apollo warehouse? Who wants to take this one?
Actually, Alan is going to address that. He's the expert in that area.
Thanks, Andy.
Stand out.
That's a great question. Before I answer the question, just let me tell you a little bit about myself. Good evening. My name's Alan Gibbs. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at Carus. I've been here, we moved our family here about 5 years ago. I've been married about 26 years. I've got 4 kids. If you've got kids, you know, I've got 1 out of college, 2 in college, and 1 in high school. And also have 2 dogs. So a little bit about Alan Gibbs. So now to the question about the chemicals in the Apollo warehouse. So the Apollo warehouse, you know, your safety and the safety of the community and the knowledge and the accuracy of the folks that are dealing with emergencies is really paramount for Carus and for the community. So one of the things that you do at the Apollo warehouse is you register and you report those chemicals through what's called Tier 2. And Tier 2 as a classification means it's hazardous, and I'll tell you about what that means here in a minute. And then we transported those chemicals back and forth, and we have to use DOT regulations for that, and those are non-DOT regulated. So what that means is you have placards on those trucks that are not going to be utilized. So some of the chemicals that were in the Apollo warehouse are manganese
I can't
sulfate.
take it.
And manganese sulfate is used as a health supplement. It's also used as a fertilizer. There was zinc sulfate, which is used as a fertilizer. And then calcium chloride was used, it's really an ice melt. You can buy that at Hy-Vee. So those are some of the chemicals that were there. What you need to know is there's no chemicals at the Apollo warehouse anymore. We removed those. I think the last group that went out was March 3rd. So that gives you a little bit of perspective on the Apollo warehouse. Thanks.
All right, thank you. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and then the floor is yours. You, sir, first one.
My name is Jamie Hicks. I'd like to discuss that Apollo warehouse, if you don't mind. I noticed that you only brought up two of the 8 chemicals that were on that tier 2 form. Magnesium dioxide, phosphoric acid, and there's a few more on there that you're leaving out of this. So you're still only telling part of the story because you know what's on that tier 2 form. Mr. Alan Gibbs, how did that building get behind our homes without anybody in the area, the community around that building? No, that was there. When we were discussing this with Sarah, Sarah said she would get back to me when I told her about the building, that I've been complaining about trucks since 2017 and the semis. And I've got emails to your company that they left dead in the water. I asked the city what you were hauling, they said product. Now product to me means your end material. And you can say all the good chemicals that you got in there. Once you go over a limit, that's why you're a tier 2 people. You gotta understand, when you're a tier 2, it's how much quantity of chemicals you are holding. It's not just, I have a bottle of this, I have a bottle of that. I've asked for material safety data sheets. I've never gotten them from you. I have a paperwork that the EPA asks you to mail them to. It's the material safety data sheets that should have been supplied at the facility along with an emergency plan, just like we should have had at Carus. This is one of my major concerns, sir, is there is no emergency plan. You had no backup plan. You guys were not ready. You never think you were going to blow up. And you neglected us on that. Not counting the insurance and all the stuff we're going through still. And I'm sure my 3 minutes is up, and I
You're doing fine.
wouldn't mind some answers to something that I just asked.
Okay, let's get a response from some folks on the panel here. Maybe there'll be multiple folks here.
Mr. Hicks, thank you for your question. A couple of things, you've got a lot of questions there, so I tried to write down as many of them as I could, so I'm trying to answer them as much as possible. So a couple of things that's important to know about Tier 2. Tier 2 was put in place to make sure that the right people know what is there in case something
Yeah,
happens.
the people who live
So it
there.
was all about right to know, and it was all about making it, public. And so when we file a Tier 2 report, and we've done this for years and years and years and years, so many, many years we've done this for the Apollo warehouse. We think we filed it like around March 1st or something like that for the previous year. So that's the data that you're looking at. You saw the 22 reports, you're looking at what we, in March, you're looking at what we did in 22. So who do we send those to? We send them to the state agency that regulates it. We also send them to the local emergency planning commission, so the LEPC, and we also send it to the fire department here in LaSalle. And they've been getting it for years.
That's where my problem lies. The city don't want to take blame for not investigating that building, and they don't have any evidence of that Apollo building ever becoming a Tier 2 chemical facility. I got emails and FOIAs where these guys are shocked to find out what it is. It's been going on for many years. Many. 2017 was my first complaint. And it was going on before that. That was the year that Tier 2, you guys had to file reports for Tier 2. It's 2017. That's when the law came into place and you had to report. What were you doing the years before that when you weren't reporting? And you said something about community right to know. You're right. It is a community right to know. But we didn't know. So
The city.
you're
didn't know.
basically saying the city is failing
The
us.
city didn't know.
The LaSalle County Planning Committee, Emergency Planning Committee, and the Illinois EPA, once again. Is that what I'm getting out of that?
Let me try to answer a couple of those questions. So again, Tier 2 has been around for a long time. We file those reports every year. We have for many, many years. So the right folks.
What law, what year did it go in place? 2017 was the year it went in place, and that's the only year that you started logging Apollo as a Tier 2. Now, your Carus Chemicals always been a Tier 2.
I'll take that down as a question. I don't know the year that EPRA went in place,
You should
but I think
have.
it was before that. But we'll check for you. I'll write it down.
You're missing the question. It's what year did you have to report your Tier 2 inventory forms to the city, to the EPA, to anybody? It was 2017. It might even have been 2015. But I got the paperwork at home that says it. I've done a lot of research on this, sir.
Yeah, great question. I wrote it down. We'll get you back to the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
A couple other things. You talked about trucks, and you know, I was back there just looking around today. Just wanted to poke my head in Apollo and you know, toured every now and then. And
Oh, do you?
you've got it's in a local neighborhood, and there's some pretty tight turns, and we work with neighbors for years. And I know about
Oh!
I know about your complaints,
Wow.
and one of the things we decided last year was that we really needed to get the routine chemicals out of Apollo.
Can't take it.
And we had started that process last year, and it was moving along, and it takes many, many months. And the fire came
does it?
along, and we realized, gosh, we need to move quicker, and so we did. So we moved those products out. I think the last product, last chemical that went out of there was March 3rd. And when you think about the other chemicals that are on the list, you kind of talked about those. And I can give you the list. I mean, you've got SAPP, which is used in, with baking powder. There's manganese carbonate, which is found in health foods, manganese dioxide used in batteries, sodium bisulfite, and the list goes on and on. You can read it on the Tier 2, it's public, it's available to you, so you can see it. The other thing is, you talked about as far as SDSs. If you ask for SDSs and we did not provide those to you, I'm sorry, we can get those for you.
I've even asked the city for them, and the city said I had to FOIA to get that information. That's what the city told me.
Oh, okay, well, I'll tell you what.
And
Mr.
I
Hicks,
find that pretty strange because I did FOIA, and I did get material safety data sheets, but I have no emergency planning. I have no exercise drills that you would perform. You guys, COVID hit. A lot of things got laxed in a lot of places. And I'm just stating the fact, Illinois EPA happened to be one of them. I don't know what happened, but stuff just isn't adding up here. You got the fire, then you got the Apollo building, and then all of a sudden, we're making noise. I have FOIAs. You guys are talking back and forth, and you're like, what are we gonna do? Well, the right thing to do is shut down the Apollo. And you've had 5 people in there investigate a building. You had an armed guard sitting back there, logged in the paperwork
For months.
by the Illinois EPA for a building that you said was empty. And the minute I said something online, that guard disappeared. That's just strange.
So again, a lot of questions there. Let me address a few of them. So one is STSs, and this is really not just open to you, Mr. Hicks, but open to everybody. You know, if you would like a copy of an STS, we would be glad to provide that for you. You know, you don't have to FOIA that. We'd be glad to help out with that. So, and then as far as, you mentioned visits to Apollo, and so I think it is important to share that, you know, what had happened. Apollo's been inspected really, I think, 5 different times by various officials. In January 30th, we had the LEPC there. February 8th, we had the police department there and other police officers. March 7th, we had the Illinois EPA. On April 20th, we had several LaSalle County officials. And even this May 4th, we had LaSalle County officials. So you're right. You're exactly right. It's been looked at. A lot of people have gone into the Ottawa, the Apollo warehouse and looked at it.
But they did it after you removed the chemicals.
Correct.
State, that is a fact. They did it after. Every single person, Fred Moore, from the LaSalle County Emergency Management, was the only person that went in that building who said he's seen 55-gallon drums, pellets of magnesium dioxide, and a hole of glue. Other than that, the other people who investigated that,
That's one.
it was all after you took the chemicals out and moved them, supposedly. Every single one. My city denied me. And the local EMA knows whose right it is to go into that building, and they knew January 26th that my fire chief could have inspected that building. We didn't go until April 20th. It's just funny. It's all these little bitty things.
Give them 2 weeks
Don't
to get
add
the
up.
stuff out, will you, Mr. Hicks?
They don't add up. Facts and data. So you can show facts and data. I mean, I got video of everything that came out of there. You said 4 trucks, 4 turned into 14. You know, you said it was parts. Where'd Jolene go? I heard she got fired because she told the city the wrong thing. And Miss Bliss got her job. That's what I heard.
All right, Mr. Hicks, thank you. We've got some other folks who came forward. And again, we've got 2 microphones here, folks. So if you want to have some time, please avail yourself of these. Go ahead, name please.
Hi, my name is Lisa Dias, and I live on the same street, approximately 3.5 blocks north of the plant. First, I want to say I know it was an accident, and the main thing is nobody was seriously hurt. The day of the fire, nobody came to my house. Stuff fell all over, destroyed pretty much everything I have outside. My chair made it on national news because the chemicals ate through my chair. It was in direct sunlight. The chemicals fell on it. And I am so offended and disgusted that not one person from Carus came to our neighborhoods to ask if we were okay or if they could do anything for us. Not one. Another thing, I just got home 5 o'clock tonight. My son Brady, who's 14, most of you know, and I don't know if people pull Facebook, he was in the hospital for 15 days with severe pneumonia and fluid around his lung. 5 IVs, plus a bunch of oral medications. Now, we don't know for sure what happened, but the pulmonologist we saw today is going to do a lung scope. She's familiar with potassium permanganate, and when I read you say it's this and that for water treatment, when I see dangers of potassium permanganate, the number one thing that pops up is pneumonia and fluid around the lungs. It is not a neurological damage, as most heavy metals, but that's what it does. I don't know for sure, but the fact that this could do something to somebody, and it could even be questionable that it's from that fire and those chemicals, should make you sick. Have empathy. What if that was your kid? 15 days, and he still has fluid on his lungs. The fluid has barely diminished. And this is from a February hospital stay. And like I said, we don't know for sure. But don't be telling me the stuff is not harmful.
If it ate through a chair, do you not think it could eat through your body? And when the day of the fire, you told residents to just wash it off, just take a hose, and you let children out of school to walk home.
There needs to be a safety plan for schools also. All of us parents who had kids, the kids were calling from school, that was a horrible thing, the kids were scared.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. The teachers didn't know what to tell them. Parents are worried, I got stuff all over my yard, my car, and then their insurance company won't even talk to the city and say where they're from. Why are they so secretive? Most of us are going through our own homeowner's insurance. I had to go through State Farm for my car, over $8,000 to replace all the chrome. I did the free car wash. I did the detailing of it, Groonies. They buffed my car 4 times and left all kinds of swirls on it. They over-buffed it. A mess. Not one care of concern from anyone. That's our stuff. You know what, it might not mean anything to you guys, but my pool, my hot tub, all my yard decorations, my car, my porch railing, my patio furniture, even my little junk plastic chair, we bought it with our hard-earned money.
And a backfire.
Air conditioner,
Air
we can't turn our air conditioner on. The other day was hotter than heck. When I had my air conditioner inspected to get the estimate, he said it's corroded, the copper and the blades don't turn it on. Would you like that at your house? But I would like an answer about my chair, because that I know for sure happened the day of the fire. You don't tell me that stuff's not dangerous. It was in direct sunlight, and it ate a hole through my chair. So don't tell me.
You know, it's summer, and these poor people need to turn on their air conditioners. They want to open their pools. They want their kids and their pets to enjoy their yards. They can't. They haven't heard from you since January. 4 months. They cannot
From them at all.
live. They're worried. They're so damn worried, and you don't care.
Let's turn to the panel. Anything from anybody?
Yes, I'm certainly not a health expert, and I really am sorry that your son's having medical issues, so I can only really say, you know, that's obviously heart-wrenching and terrible thing to hear, so we're sorry for that. In terms of, do we care? You know, easy for me to say we do. Obviously we haven't met and we haven't been out to talk, and we'll certainly be happy to do that.
It's been the whole problem since day one.
Just don't be saying it's not dangerous. That is to me the biggest lie. When you look up potassium permanganate, and different neighbors of mine have had respiratory issues since the fire, not to the extent of my son, but it could be because of that. And it is a fact. I've read it countless places that it is harmful to lungs.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
What about my chair? I would like some.
An explanation, yeah.
It was in direct sunlight, and it cooled here. And about an hour later, after I went out, all of a sudden there was a hole.
So what's the chair made out of?
Plastic.
Plastic?
Use the microphone.
That's tough to say, I do not know.
Microphone?
Use the microphone, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That is unexpected. I will say that. I don't know. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. I don't have a good answer for
They're
you
all liars.
on why there's a hole.
It's good.
I want to go up there and ask
Good,
about her
good.
pool. My
The
granddaughter.
material itself is corrosive until it,
when permanganates in the
I gotta
environment,
see
it
this.
reacts with organic material and different things and deactivates.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, today, after it's been in water, it will be manganese dioxide. That's the decomposition product of it. So when, in the pool water, as I'm assuming the pool is closed and has water from snow and rain, the organic material that fell into the pool water on top there.
We have a cover.
Excuse me?
We have a cover.
Yeah, but is there water?
Oh, yeah.
It's an
I
above
believe
ground
there's
pool.
water on
Is it an above ground pool and it has kind of the bubble and
Yes.
so there's water in there now? That permanganate would be decomposed today to manganese dioxide.
How about the air filters in their home that tested for heavy metals?
That tested for heavy metals.
EPA.
The levels of heavy metals that we have seen and have been reported, and the environmental reports by Brownfield and the EPA and the IEPA, all are lower than areas of concern. The health department has come back and looked at all that data, and they have stated that.
Are you going by the
it's not a concern.
signature on the EPA reports or the actual numbers? Because the numbers were actually off the chart that day.
Excuse me?
Sorry. I had to get 3 teeth pulled because of infection from these chemicals. I can't even talk right anymore. My car's broke down. I got shit everywhere. Who's gonna come look at me and my health? I went to 2 emergency room visits this week because I couldn't breathe because you turned on a new machine. I'm allergic to the product. Are you gonna move me? What are you gonna do?
Good.
I don't wanna have meetings. I want somebody to take care of me. My kids have been sick ever since the fire. And my car has been slowly deteriorating since I moved here 3 years ago. And there's no paint left in the ceiling of my car. What are you gonna do? I don't want to be.
Can I ask your name, please?
My name's April. I'm really worked up. April Stevenson. I live about 8 blocks north of Carus Chemicals.
Catch your breath for just a few seconds there. Then you can continue.
I was working on getting them repaired, but the infection spread so fast I was on 5 rounds of antibiotics and they had to do something drastic to try and get rid of the infection. My kid had infections on his feet. My kid got infections on his feet from playing outside and not washing it off quick. My other kid had digestion issues, had 2 emergency room visits because he couldn't get food through. All of it is a liver damage. I had to set up like a porta potty in my art room because I couldn't make it to the bathroom. That's how effective this is to me. Who's gonna help me? I wanna know, who's gonna help?
And there you go. Silence.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
but swingle up here.
My name is Chris Crockett.
Oh,
I'm
Chris
the Senior
Crockett.
Vice President at Carus and the Chief Financial Officer. Can I ask you, have you filed any insurance claims to
I
date?
did, and they rejected any medical. They rejected my car, even though it's got spots everywhere. My muffler oxidized off. My brake lines are going because of the chemicals. And they offered me $774 for my bicycles because they took away the finish off of them.
Were the claims denied or were
They rejected it. They said there was no damage. And if I took that $774, they wouldn't be responsible for anything else.
Okay. Can you, I'll be happy to discuss. I don't think you want to talk about health issues publicly. I mean, it's
I've
up to
been
you.
posting it, yeah. People didn't know what was going on, so I had to share personal experiences.
I will say that nobody up here is a medical doctor, so we're not really.
Finance.
I mean, it's in paperwork what the products can do to somebody's body. Now it's a matter of who's going to help me.
Have you, I'm sure you have, but have you called into the hotline, the Carus hotline?
Yeah.
Okay. I know your name. I will go back to the hotline to get your phone number, and we'll reach out to you. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's a good
State
way
your name,
to
please.
shut somebody up.
Talia, and I live at the end of Porter Street, which is right down from that Apollo warehouse. Definitely one of the families that have complained about the semi-truck traffic, only because at the time I had very little children, and you guys frankly have some of the worst drivers I've ever seen. And knocked over bushes, a fence, and rocks, and got hung up in multiple places, almost tipped over multiple times, as they're carrying, now we find out, a highly explosive chemical. So I've lived across the street from your warehouse that we were told was stored parts, and not once in the entire time that we've owned that home, 20 years, did someone say, hey, that is carrying explosive material in a rundown building. We should maybe have a drill. We should maybe never have a fire outside because you have a hole in the roof of that building. And I have to say, not once did someone come to my home and say, guess what? You're not even 100 feet from a building that could blow up in 3 seconds, like Carus blew up. Not one time. The right to know is the right for us who's next door. And I'm disappointed in that. And I'm more disappointed that maybe my mayor or maybe my city council knew and didn't tell me. Because I would never have subjected my kids to that. And I would have willingly at least done a fire drill or allowed you guys to buy my house out.
Same here.
Yep.
You can have the whole block.
If I had known that your trucks driving that horrifically that we complained about could have tipped over and not only taken out my house, every single one of the neighbors that we love, and not one time did you come to my house and say, I'm very sorry that they're driving recklessly and what they're doing could kill all of us. That I'm disappointed about. I don't care now that you took the stuff out, but you could have told us then. This right to know is not okay. And second of all, this comment where you say, when the rain and the snow events shortly after the fire and potassium permanganate was diluted and neutralized, and corrosivity was eliminated, passing no additional threat, let me tell you, sir, I have brand new siding, brand new soffit and fascia at my home, and a brand new air conditioning unit, and we just installed a brand new cement that's less than 6 months old. And we have a boat and a trailer and another trailer parked outside. Every single thing is corroding. We are thankful we have State Farm, but there are things that you still need to pay for. I emailed Susan. Susan says it needs to go to this person. That person I emailed, 6 days. I followed up 3 times, not one response. So don't tell me that you're sorry. Sorry means nothing if there's no action behind it.
Yep. Right.
And I don't need to comment the fact that we didn't even bring our pet home for a month. Because our house is right there. If you look at the pictures of my home, here's the plume completely covering my home. Not once did you stop by and say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. You're deeply affected by this. What can Carus do to help you? Can we board your pets for you? And please, the gentleman that you sent to power wash our house, really? Why didn't you have bats and trucks or whatever chemical you needed to neutralize it ready? Instead, all of us who have brand new siding are just out. And you don't even think about the time, even as we deal with contractors and people now that we have to hire to do all these things, and then babysit them to make sure they do a good job. Do you know how much man hours my husband and I have spent and the more that's to come? Are you going to pay for our salary as we take vacation days to deal with this?
Right.
like you had a chemical spill, and believe me, I know people that work in your building, and we check on them immediately. That is the forefront. But after that is taken care of, what are you doing to compensate us for all the time we wasted and the stress? And I am very disappointed because right now State Farm says our house and the two other neighbors that are right next to us, Lisa and some of the others, our houses are the most deeply impacted. Not once have they knocked on our door and apologized to us. And what can you do to help us deal with what is up against us? We're talking roof, siding, downspouts. Would you like a photo of my downspout? It's as brown as this carpeting, the entire downspout. So don't tell me it's fine. Oh, and by the way, my grill is sitting outside.
You ain't cooking out.
Would you like a hamburger for me to cook on it for you?
You got a guard?
It's summertime.
Open my chair.
Because I'll willingly, if it's so safe, I can grill your hamburger right now. This is what I'm saying. We're not trying to be jerks, but here we are months and months later. And we still have corrosiveness, boats destroyed, trailers destroyed, brand new cement destroyed. It's not like we spend a little bit of money here. And not one real apology face to face, which is what we were owed. And you owe me an apology for storing that stuff in that house and you could have killed my kids.
Amen.
All right.
We have 2 microphones available, folks.
How about any answers? Any response?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
I think a couple of us are.
Try not to.
So thanks for
Don't
your
hesitate to
questions.
come on up and queue up at the microphone.
Thanks for your comments and thanks for your questions. I'll try to respond to a couple of them. One, in terms of Apollo, with the truck traffic, we did know there were some issues there, and we were trying to move out of that facility, and maybe we went a little too slow, so I'm sorry for that. I know we've tried to work with neighbors in terms of making some repairs there, but I see your comments, so thanks for sharing that. In terms of, you made a couple of comments about the product that was in Apollo, and facts are really important, and it's really important for people to know, and I've got a little text here. The Tier 2 date started in 1986. So, we've been doing that for a long time, just so you know. All those rules and regulations. But then the comment you had made about the explosive chemicals, in Apollo, there were none, period. The facts are there were no explosive chemicals in Apollo, no debate, no question. The second thing is all the chemicals that were impacted by the Carus fire, none of them were in Apollo. None of them, not one. It was completely different than what the Carus fire was impacted by. So I know that made you were concerned about that. So that was simply not factual. So I want to make sure you got that, because I feel that if I was living in the house, I would want you to.
I have pictures of that to disprove that information, sir. So you might want to fact check. I got totes of potassium permanganate. I also have an officer who went in there.
He's here today.
He's here today, if you'd like to hear from him. And I could question him right in front of you.
Well, we can talk offline.
Because, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. You've been wanting to see my pictures the whole time, bud. You think I'm gonna cough them up now? For you? No.
You know what's in there.
You knew what was in there, because your name's in the paperwork.
Who else on the panel wanted to respond to it?
Try to bullshit a bullshitter.
Wow.
Backfire. You guys are sinking. I know. And 2017 was the year you had to report Tier 2 chemical storage facilities. Before that, no, you didn't have to report it. It was not reportable until 2017.
All right, we have some
I'll
folks at the
post it
microphone.
later, guys.
Anybody? Are you good?
Debunk
Right,
every damn
James.
thing they said.
Greg Stein, resident of Oglesby, construction worker retired. And my mostly questions, and the facility that had the fire and blew up, you call it a warehouse. Was it a mixing facility? were there chemicals in there besides the finished product? Is the plant over there, did they make anything besides potassium permanganate? And I'll go, can you answer those first?
Yes, sir. So a couple of questions. One was, what were the products or what were the chemicals stored in the warehouse? Was it a warehouse? Was it a mixing facility? So I'll share a little bit about that. The area that burned is what we call our warehouse, and the area just north of it is where we actually package that product. So the most damage was what we call our warehouse, and that's where our potassium permanganate was stored. Now, what was stored in there is almost exclusively potassium permanganate in the package, and there were some package, non-fill packages in there also. That was the bulk of it. There were really, we didn't store other chemicals in there. It's just the potassium permanganate plant.
So apparently you had some safeguards to stop the rest of the plant from going up.
Yeah.
So apparently you mixed them somewhere and sent them to the room north of where it mostly blew up, and then the room that blew up was a warehouse that gets loaded into semi-trucks and leaves town.
Yeah, so the area north of it's where we package, and then the area south of that is the warehouse, and that's where we load our trucks, correct?
And did the area north, the packaging facility go up to?
Yeah, the area north of it sustained pretty heavy damage from the adjacent fire, that's correct.
I think that answers.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. Your name, please?
Dina Hicks. I live about 4 blocks north of the facility. First question, back to the air filters. Is it common to have those heavy metals in your air filters? Is that normal?
To the best of my knowledge, those heavy metals are within the background of what people have reported. Sorry. So to the best of my knowledge, those metals are in the background readings of the soil in the area. So if that is the case, then you would expect those to be in the air filters because of dust in the area, kicked up by cars or just the wind. Or
It's black.
plowing their field. So you would expect that.
Okay. We are on the Superfund site, had our dirt replaced several years ago. Where you guys are behind the fence, because we're right next to the fence by the Apollo. So where you guys are right behind those trees, everything's dead. There's no vegetation holding down the dirt that is probably more contaminated than our yards were. So as the wind blows, this dirt just blows. Is that what you consider safe for the residents who live by us, that we just keep continuously getting contaminated day after day after day?
So I think I understand your question. You're talking about the area just, that big open area east of Apollo.
Yeah.
So and sometimes the facts get confusing, but Carus owns the land that our property, that our plants own, and then we own some land just east of there, and we own the Apollo warehouse, but the area that you're talking about is not Carus property. So, in terms of what we're talking about.
So that don't matter. It's not a big deal that this keeps happening.
Yeah, I think it is a big deal. It's just hard for me to comment on something that Carus doesn't own.
That's an excuse.
Because your chemical fire contaminated that ground, and now it's becoming dust that we're breathing in. It's your chemical from your plant that blew up an accidental fire, but we gotta breathe it in, but it's not your property, so it's not your problem. Just the City of LaSalle residents have to breathe it in.
No, I wasn't saying that. I get your point. Yeah.
This has been for decades, this contamination. It's a joke.
It's like usually the taxes on it, and then
fire, but it contaminated our house, our property, all the existing property around us. We're breathing it in. You guys act like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's your chemical from your plant. We're dying because of you guys. And you don't want to answer back to us. You just want to tell us it's our problem, it's our house. Buy my house out, let me move away from you guys.
Ditto. Ditto. Thank you.
Destroy my house, destroy all the property around me. Now I can't sell it on them probably because you're property. You're manufacturer, your company, but you guys act like we're trying to help you. You're not trying to help me. If you're trying to help me, you would better my house talk to me about what you can do to help me. I wrote this. I had two cents 2 years ago. It went bad, so they had to come out, jackhammer it all out, when they poured it, they had bad mix. That was the issue with that microphone. But they had jackhammer it out, they come back with new cement in October. And now, in the past, when it rained, my shingles were not, the little fibers were not coming off my roof. My roof's not very old, 5 years old. So 2 years ago, they did my cement. Now after it rains, my cement is just covered from the shingle stuff. And you're telling me that it's not hurting my roof. I know it's hurting my roof. It's hurting every one of my neighbors' roofs.
Yep.
Your company, your chemical, our property's destroyed. And just a small area because the cloud came over, fell on us, and then the wind blew away. And thank goodness it did because it didn't hit the school of LaSalle. It didn't hurt all the kids, but at least it blew away. But the few houses that didn't pack, you're not doing nothing for.
It went to Dimmick.
Carried on to Dimmick.
Do you have more that you want to share while you're there? Okay.
Two more things. One is my pool, which, this is the rail of my pool. I have a 7-year-old granddaughter and a 4-year-old chocolate lab who like to swim. I can't let them go in this pool. The water is contaminated, and now we have to leave it up. The city had to take responsibility to test the water to find out how to dispose of it, because when I called Carus and asked, what am I supposed to do? Carus said, well, I don't know, just put it on the paper for the Davies group. I'm so tired of getting that answer. You get nowhere. Nobody has an answer. Nobody helps you. You just keep getting the same runaround. Next, oh, you gonna answer? Oh, yes, you can.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Lindsay Bliss, and just to kind of introduce myself, I moved to this area 3 years ago. I do live in Salle. I have a family. I have little kids too. My kids play in the same parks that your kids play in. I understand, I really do, the situation. There's been things that we've done since the fire that we've done really well, and there's been things where we have some opportunity to improve. And one of those things is getting out in front of you guys and hearing from you directly. Your stories, quite frankly, are breaking my heart. We want to help you. We want to work with you. We don't know if we can't fix things if we don't know about them. So that's really the purpose of today, is to try to figure out ways that we can work productively and constructively with you guys. Because I know that if that was my pool, I'd want answers too.
More than anybody.
And that's our job. That's our job as a leadership team, is to hear from you guys and to try to work with you to really figure out what are some solutions
You
to
sat
fix
on it
those.
since January.
And you watch my Facebook, and I know you do, so you know what our concerns are. This isn't
You
new
know.
news. This isn't new news.
So I said that there's a lot of things that we've done right,
No.
and there's a lot of things that we have room for opportunity around. And one of those things that we have room for opportunity around is how we've managed the community. And we understand, that's why we're here today, everyone. We're here to hear from you. We want to make a change. We want to build the relationship and the trust back up.
You don't need to be managed, though. You need to have a reciprocal conversation.
Totally agree with you. And that's what this is about. We want to hear from you. Give us a chance, please.
You mean air
4
conditioner?
months.
Are the two of you together, or do you have,
Yeah, I'm sure.
okay.
Sorry, you had another thing to say before I broke in, sorry.
And then you had two things you said, so what was the
The last one is I have dogs. I have 3 min pins and a chocolate lab. This is my daughter. She lives on the block as well. They have, we were told it's completely safe, let your animals out, no big deal. Whatever happens, if there is an issue you think is related, go to your vet. Well, then we were told by the ASPCA that there is issues, that it is not safe. You should not be letting your animals out there. We have no choice. We have to let our dogs out unless we want to board them somewhere else. And they're our family. They are all throwing up. Our cat throws up every day. He's 18 years old, poor little thing. But what do? You have this issue that happened to you that covers your entire yard, everything, every blade of grass, every inch of concrete. What are we supposed to do? You guys have been quiet, you have hidden, you didn't want to interact. We have been beating the city up over this to try and get you guys to come here. And I know we may get a little out of it sometimes, but this is all we have. If we could sell it, we would. But we're being told that that's probably not an option. What do we do?
Look, we really do appreciate you sharing tonight. We are listening and making notes, and give us a chance. We'll have more conversation.
Conversation don't
You
fix
call
it.
it hotline, we'll get back to you, we'll come visit.
No.
Oh my goodness.
That hotline's dead to us.
Okay.
So it's my daughter, my son, my husband, all of us have called, all of our neighbors.
If we have your details, I'll call you back.
All right.
Gibbs
Thank
has
you very
got
much.
him. They got
Anything,
him.
please, sir.
Larry Schneider. First of all, you guys haven't stopped by. I'm going to anyone every day. Why weren't you honest with the opposed to and telling them where the metals actually come from? Like, where do they come from? The metals that come out of your plant. Where do they come from?
Good job, girls.
Where do they come from? Where do they come from? The metals that are in our yards and our furnace filters. Where are they coming from?
Stacks.
The metals that start out in the ore are all accounted for.
Where do you get the ore?
We purchase the ore from a supplier that brings it into the US.
And it's contaminated with the metals.
It is a normal product
No,
of,
I didn't ask if it was
of the
normal.
dirt.
Is it that what happens?
What?
It emits out of your stack from the ore when you use it for the process of making your product. And it's in our furnace filters. You didn't tell any of the fire chief or nothing, you didn't tell them anything about any other chemicals except for 2 things. That's why we're in the position we're in today. Because you weren't honest. So where does it come from? It comes from the ore, so now you're being honest. So now you're forced to admit it. Because I called you out. What about the beige dust that we find in our yards every now and again in the summertime?
The beige dust.
The beige dust.
Is
Yeah.
manganese dioxide.
What is it doing in my yard?
Yeah.
It's a normal component of your soil, sir.
No, it's not.
No, it's
so you're
not.
telling me it comes up from the ground and just makes a dust, a film of dust on my yard? Start to shake a little bit.
It's a normal component of your soils.
Pardon me?
It's a normal component of your soils.
So it's not coming from you.
We have grass.
So the same time that I found it in my yard was the same time that you were in violation for the amount of waste and chemicals and stuff that come out of your stack. So now, where did it come from?
I cannot comment on that, sir, because I don't know.
Were you in violation how many times for emissions violations?
I could not tell you.
You can't tell me how many times it's been that many?
I can't give you numbers, sir, because I don't have that information.
Well, my dog gets sick as hell every time that stuff is in my yard. People get sick from that. It's time to start being honest.
Be a good neighbor.
Anyone? Lindsay?
Shit, she's still on.
Look, man, I'm not the expert in this area, but in terms of being honest,
Okay, not that you're not honest, you just don't tell people most of the story. Do you?
I would not.
Your whole
I would not
opinion
agree
piece
with
was
that
debunked
comment.
5 minutes after it came out last night. I'm sure you saw that. It's unacceptable.
Shut down.
You're smirking half the time too, you especially. So,
Yeah,
let's
pigs.
calm down, but I'll ask Mark about that.
You are the president of the company. You have a PhD and you cannot answer these questions?
That's pretty sad. That's sad.
Bingo.
Okay, your name, ma'am?
My name is Patricia Walters, and I'd kind of like to follow up with what Marty just said. I live almost 2 miles away from the plant, north and west of the plant, and my furnace filter was filled with all of the chemicals that you report in your toxic release inventory. So did that come from the fire, or is that always going to be there? I happen to have filters because I don't throw them out all the time, so if I test one that's an older one, is it going to have those chemicals in it? And you talk about how it's naturally occurring in the air. So if we go to Peru and we test somebody's filter in the middle of Peru, is it going to have those same chemicals in it? Those same heavy metals? And then about testing, let's talk about testing. Why are you relying on the Illinois EPA and the EPA because they said, oh, well, it's close, you know, like we're this far off of being tested, of being over, but we're not over, so we're not going to do any more testing. You have a whole arena here full of people that are telling you different. You have the reports from the Sierra Club that have called into question some of the testing. So why are you fighting more testing unless you're hiding something? I'd like an answer to that.
Amen.
We're not hiding anything, ma'am.
Then do more testing.
We're not hiding anything, ma'am. The EPA is the organization in the U.S. that's responsible for the environment and the safety of the U.S. citizens from releases like this.
So you're relying on
So-
that. So these people are telling you something different. The Sierra Club looked at the testing results that they put in. There were anomalies in them. They are not all accurate. The testing results from Brownfield were not all accurate, and they were taken in less than ideal ways. When they should have gone 1 to 3 inches or 0 to 3 inches, they went 3 to 6 inches. When it should have been some kind of test, it was a wipe test. When it should have been maybe against the aluminum, they put it against the gravel or against the concrete where it didn't pick it up. There are reasons to go out and test more. Why are you not testing more? You don't have to rely on the EPA. You can choose, Carus can choose to do more testing. Why are you choosing to not do more testing?
I don't know.
We're following the experts at the EPA because they are the experts.
You don't.
And they are the ones that recommend and police this industry.
From the car window?
And you guys hold 80% of the market, that you're a monopoly, and you need to tell me to go on board with the EPA. And by the way, some of the testing was done at OSHA standards, which means your workers was wearing a full gear and completely covered and not breathing in. That's for the testing. No offense, when I walk outside, I'm not wearing a hazmat suit.
Let's go to another question. Your name, please.
Dawn Hicks. I live about 4.5 blocks west of Carus. One thing I wanted to ask was, just to repeat it for me, it was said that when it snowed and rained shortly after the fire, that took care of a corrosive material as far as the potassium permanganate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why was it on February 9th at 7:44 a.m. in the rain, I have 2 Carus workers standing right outside the west gate in the rain, spraying matter as it's going into the drain. And I've been told that that's actually a common practice. So if it's raining and snowing, that should take care of it, right? So why are we using special spray bottles with Carus employees before the runoff from the plant is going into the sewer? If rain and snow make it all better, why do we need this mixture?
We'll have to get back to you.
By the way, those employees were in hazmat suits.
All these weren't, they had helmets and gloves on.
Oh, okay.
There's two separate situations.
They have like it was
There's more than one.
on the south side.
Yeah.
Right on the
It's common.
Who wants to take this one?
And I'm done. Oh, man, don't.
Show them the picture.
Yeah.
I'll show you there's date, time, everything. This is what the gentleman, this is the west gate of Carus.
Look at them. Uh-huh.
Bottles right next to the sewer.
They've seen it on my fucking webpage. Good for her. She always amazes me. I'm telling you.
Thanks for your question. I don't have the data in front of me to answer that question, but I wrote it down, and we can investigate it and give you some feedback.
It would be any date that it's raining in our town. My understanding is this is a common practice for Carus, is to stand next to the sewer system, spraying your special spray prior to going into the sewer system.
To make it not purple.
The other question is when, not if,
Look at them. Oh, fuck, man.
a fire, explosion like this again happens. What have we learned from it that we need to pass on to the next time this happens? Because telling us to shelter in place and then not telling us how to properly shelter in place is not very helpful.
Safety plan. But you won't provide.
Is there a safety plan right now?
Yes, let me pull up my notes here. Hold on.
And where could we get access to that?
They said it was private in their email.
It can't be private.
Well, they said it was. Only the city guys can see it. Other than that, it's private.
So if there's a fire, are you gonna look at your notes before you tell all of your employees?
Hell no.
We went to the gas station.
Thank you.
Let's get an answer for that. You know, that's a great question, and one of the things that we do to make sure that we know what to do is that we have a plan. Because when you're in a crisis, you really don't remember everything just right.
What is the plan?
What's the plan?
What was the plan?
And that's why you strike it. That's right. That's a good response. So one of the things that we're doing following the fire is we brought in some experts to do an investigation and follow up on those recommendations. We're also gonna, when we rebuild, we're gonna make pretty significant improvements in that process, and that's gonna be a great benefit to the community and to the plant and to our employees and to you guys.
How?
If something blows up tomorrow, what is the plan right now?
Okay, so when you think about our current emergency response plan,
Yes.
the
What
things-
is that plan?
Well, let me answer your question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yes, it
And
is.
so the emergency response plan is pretty comprehensive. It's very specific to each one of our sites.
Should be.
When you think
Could
about
I
it,
have the specifics?
Let him answer your question, please.
yeah, these are required by law. We have to have these.
But what
They're
is the
looked at, they're
specific?
expected. And the things that are in those plans, let me give you a couple of perspectives here. One is we have to say, what is the purpose of the plan? We have to say, what are the definitions that we're going to use? We have to talk about how do we report incidents? How do we have incident notifications? Who do we call? How do we notify? We have to have the
I know
emergency
all this
response
stuff.
levels. Is it a big
Gonna be
deal,
brought
a
up.
minor deal? How big of an emergency is it? We have to talk
I don't
about
have to look
how
at
are we
a
going to
paper.
handle that emergency? Who's accountable for those emergencies? And the list goes on and on and on in terms of how we handle an emergency. So there's a pretty comprehensive plan when we talk about emergencies.
So when you say shelter in place, do you think maybe you should have it elaborated or somebody on your team should have elaborated? Like turning off your furnace or your air conditioner
Don't blame the city.
Putting wet towels at the base of doors and the base of windows. Saying shelter in place is kind of like, good luck. You know what?
Yeah, that's good feedback, thank you.
All right, thank you. Your name, please. Please step up to the microphone.
Cindy Bailey. I've lived here my whole life. My dad worked at M&H. You guys are new. It's something Carus kind of does, brings in people from out of town. M&H, Matheson was bought out about 30 years, owning the business. And Paul Carus married Mary Heckler. So it's been in the Carus family since 1990. They just never changed the name. That's how they covered their essence.
Amen.
There's been dangerous chemicals there for years. There was one door that had an X on it with dangerous, and they brought in a guy from out of town, no family, young guy. They offered him more money to work behind that door. My dad told him if he had a death wish, he'd take it. The guy took it, he lived a year.
Wow.
There were still chemicals back there. To this day, they are still seeping down hillside, green sand going into the creek. That's how they're emptying it.
Yep.
The EPA has been monitoring the M&H place since the 1970s. Do you know when they did anything? When they filed bankruptcy. So they didn't have to pay for it.
Yep, she knows what I said.
Two brothers own both of those buildings. Slag piled the hugest one in the back. Your company claimed they never dumped anything on it until everybody stood up and called them a liar. And I know people that have worked there that have told me they were always told to dump on that pile. Caruses have never been honest with anybody.
Nope.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next question, your name, please.
Yeah, let's just move on, right?
I'm a resident of LaSalle. However, I do work for the Department of Human Services in the City of Ottawa, and all of the chemical, I understand, that was moved from LaSalle has been moved and stored in Ottawa now. It is being stored in the same office building that I work in every day, the same office building that houses the Department of Human Services, the Illinois Employment Security Agency, the Department of Child and Family Services, and the Child Care Department for the state of Illinois. As far as the safety plan goes, I understand there are millions of pounds of potassium permanganate stored in our office building now. We have never been told that that chemical is there directly. We have never been given a safety protocol or a safety plan or any sort of policy to follow if there's another explosion.
Evacuation plan.
I understand, questioned what was actually being stored in the same office building that we work in every day. They were told not to worry, that there were absolutely no explosive or combustible chemicals stored in that building. And then there's an article that comes out in the Ottawa Times that states that there's almost 10 million pounds of potassium permanganate stored in our office building. I'm just curious when we're going to find out what the policy would be if there's another explosion, or what safety protocol is in place to keep us safe each day when we go to work.
Evacuation plan.
Gives you an answer here if whoever wants to take this one.
Yeah, I can share a little bit there. Thanks for your question. Safety and concern for you're adjacent to the building, out toward that facility, so I understand your question. I've talked to the CEO and the CEO of the people that manage that company, and what Carus does there is we lease a facility, we store our chemicals there. We started that, some people don't realize this, but we started that back in last year. So that was not after the fire, that was before the fire. We've been in operation for a while.
And it was called warehouse storage instead of chemical storage.
Yeah, we stored chemicals there, not just warehouse. It's the same as it was, prior, pre-fire, what it is today. No different. And so you said a really kind of crazy number, and I know I'm not calling you. I know you just don't know. I get it. But 10 million pounds of potassium permanganate? No way. That's in Ottawa. No way. Not even close, right?
So the Ottawa Times are a million pounds. 1 million
Yeah.
pounds.
So,
That's still a lot of potassium permanganate.
yeah, I wish we had 1 million pounds. No, we don't have anything close to that right now, so. So let me give you a couple of perspectives. Lots has been a great business partner, and I can't speak for them, but I can say a couple things. They've done a great job navigating and setting up that warehouse to make sure that all the safety protocols, all the regulations were followed. I know they had to go all kinds of hearings, all kinds of discussions. When I think about what was done there,
Didn't get none of that, did we?
when we set up the warehouse, it had thorough inspections through multiple emergency response drills with the fire department, the police. All the experts agreed that it was a good site for a warehouse. It was inspected many times before the fire and after the fire by the DHS, which is Department of Homeland Security. It's a federal agency. The City of LaSalle officials, the fire chief, the commissioners,
How come we don't have that at the Apollo and you got that at Lots?
the mayor. There were 3 pre-planned tours with the entire fire department. They had the whole fire department there. You probably saw them out
I
there.
brought them there.
They were planning.
I'm the one who brought them there.
And the community, you should really take comfort in knowing
No.
that all those folks set that up.
Again, what is the plan?
I don't take comfort in the fact that we work there every day, we weren't even told that there's a chemical storage facility
Thanks.
in our
It was a
building. We haven't
Kmart.
been given a safety
It was a
plan.
Kmart
We have no
tire
sprinkler
shop.
system in the building.
I used to work there.
I don't understand how we're going to be safe that there's an explosion.
What's the safety plan?
The safety plan should be posted.
It should be.
And the same law should apply to the Apollo when it got.
There's a retention wall at an old mall? You're telling me there's a retention wall if a fire happens or anything to hold that product, to make sure it doesn't go anywhere or harm the people in all those schools in that area? You're telling me there's a retention wall and it was okay? You're telling me that's okay?
And you just told me there was no hazardous or flammable material that was in Apollo, that those trucks were from our neighborhood. Straight to left.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think facts are really important. And so,
They're
Those
burning.
are the facts.
let me
They're
share you.
failing.
share a
We
little
got
bit of
10
fact
minutes. They're failed.
Because some folks may not realize this. So we did move, for the material that was in the Apollo warehouse, we moved a very small amount to the Ottawa warehouse. We did. So you had that material, when we went there, it was not, you had no, none of the chemicals that were from the fire were in Apollo. They got moved to Lots. So now we use the Lots warehouse pretty routinely as one of our regular warehouses. So you'll see traffic
can do it, Bree.
going back and forth
We
from
know.
the LaSalle warehouse, from our LaSalle site.
Even after hours in the dark.
We followed you. We know. You're on video. We know exactly what you took out of the trucks too.
The safety of those workers over
If you-
there,
if you-
is there a retention wall?
If you want to have a statement, we've got a microphone down here, please. But anything else on this one before we move on?
Yeah, before this
So
gets
the
out of
answer is
control.
there's no
Let's go to the
emergency
gentleman
plan
over
there?
here at the next microphone. Your name, sir?
I'm Eric Dias.
No.
Mike and Lisa spoke
Yeah,
already.
just let it go.
So my question is,
They
for the
want us.
Apollo,
They want us to.
you're telling me it was defined as packaging. That's pretty vague.
They failed this.
What do you mean by
Oh,
packaging?
I'm working on your shit.
Certain
Don't
size
worry.
packages will be
Don't worry.
regulated, depending what the material is.
Somebody's keeping information from me.
Correct?
I'm thinking I'm following your question. So you're saying that we have packaging in the Apollo warehouse?
No, you say
Said
that.
you move packages from it. What size were they? Because that determines sometimes on chemicals if it's regulated or non-regulated. If it's regulated, it now has to have a special bill with the proper requirements in the certain sequence, and it also has to be placarded. Even if it's class 9. Because once it's bulk, it trumps everything.
Yeah, great question. So the DOT regulates.
I teach hazmat, so so
Yeah, great.
I know it all.
Great.
Yeah, so the DOT regulates what's placarded, and that's kind of like the signs that you put on the side of a truck. You know that because you teach hazmat, and folks in the audience may not. And so when we moved the chemicals out of the Apollo warehouse, they did not meet the requirements that required placarding. And so there was no placarding because it was not required.
The potassium permanganate needed placards that you hauled out of the Apollo. Officer Zebron was there. He went in the building. He's seen it. I have pictures of it. Totes.
Once again, if you've got comments, please use the microphone so that everybody can hear in the room here.
My next question.
Yes, sir.
Who's responsible for your safety training of your drivers? Because obviously those are all considered accidents. So they should have been retrained. OSHA laws, look up OSHA laws on accidents. Even if it's a near miss, they need to be retrained.
I'm sorry, what's your question now?
On your drivers that were going from the Apollo, that were hitting rocks and fences, and those are all considered accidents. They have to be retrained. What type of retraining do you have for those drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the details in my head, but we train our drivers all the time. I mean.
Well, they need to be retrained by OSHA standards.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll write that down as a question, and we can follow up. Yeah, I just don't have that. I don't have the knowledge of everything, right? So.
And
Can
then
we?
on this little pamphlet here,
We need the DOT to come in.
Carus is committed to mitigating the risk that could repeat of this event. Okay, that's fine. It's established safe handling and storage practices, as well as local, state, and federal regulations. As previously stated, potassium permanganate contained in a super sack packaging was transported from the warehouse to a waiting truck, was damaged by a forklift. What is your process right after that? Do you have a chemical spill now? What is your process? I'll tell you what you're stating it is here, but what is your true process? Are you legally able to clean it up yourself? How would you know? Because you have to make a call, correct? You have to get a hold of either Chemtrack, Emergency Response Training Solutions, EPCO, something like that, correct? To decide how you clean it up.
Yes.
So why is it saying, following normal protocols, the warehouse teams cleaned up the spill?
Huh.
Oh. Yeah, I see your question.
That's illegal.
Yeah, let me give you some feedback. So there's two kinds of regulations, and we're getting a little detailed here.
Again, you're not going to hazmat trainer.
Yeah,
you know,
I get it. But you know, you're a hazmat trainer, so you know if you're DOT and you're on road, that you're going to call Chemtrack,
Right.
and you're going to call those experts. And if you're on site, you're not going to follow DOT rules. You're going to follow different rules, right?
Right.
And so you're going to clean that up.
No, you're not. You're going to call a system that tells you if you can clean it up or not. You can't just make the decision yourself. You're endangering everybody.
It costs money to call.
Supposed to.
I'll tell you what, it's $4,500 to make the call. The team has to come. You're looking at another $5,500.
Oh, there
It's
you
about
go.
10 grand per call. Is that the reason you didn't follow the protocol? Because it's $10,000?
No, I think it gets mixed up maybe a little bit in terms of what the rules are on the road, which I would.
That's
agree.
not the road.
I would agree.
I'm
with
talking
you.
about at a facility.
Yeah, at a facility.
Recordable limits.
Because I'm in charge of that too.
Okay.
I just want to know, what was your process? Did you do it right, or did you clean it up yourself? Which now you just endangered all your employees. You can't make the call on that without specifically knowing.
Yeah, our safety protocol says that we would clean that up, and we did.
No, it
You
don't.
have to make a call.
No, it doesn't. We were told different in the city meeting.
I've never heard of where you can just clean something up yourself.
Yeah,
You have to make a call.
It depends on what the chemical is. I agree with you.
That's a hazardous chemical. So it's not like you're dealing with something that's not.
Finger paint.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, I'm just telling you
I know
what I
that.
think.
So what specific equipment did they use to clean it up?
You're gonna.
What was their PPE? These are things that matter to your workers. And if you're putting them in danger, shame on you guys. That's endangering everybody else. Because if you maybe called somebody, instead of having them clean that up, if that fire broke out, you be sure of that?
We're getting close to
Have
the
specifics
Yeah.
to it, it may
Listen
have
to
never
this
happened,
guy.
correct?
Carus is getting beat up. We gotta shut it down.
Yeah, the day of the fire, you raised some really good points. The day of the fire, when we realized what had happened, we called we hired a third-party investigator because we really wanted to know what had happened. We kind of wanted to get the answers to some of your questions. And we didn't want to do it ourselves. We didn't want to investigate it. We hired an expert. It took some time. And they looked at all the data, all the details, and really what we found out was there was a whole series of really unusual events.
Obviously, a training problem?
Obviously, in 100 years, nothing like this has happened. And when you think about it, I try to explain it. If you think about it, if you take some, you probably heard this analogy. If you take some Swiss cheese, and there's a hole in it, so you can poke a hole. If you put another piece of Swiss cheese there, and maybe you get two of them lined up, two holes, put a third one, or a fourth one, or a fifth one, and finally, you can't get a hole for it. You don't get the accident. Something stops it, right? And the day of the fire, we had a whole lot of those line up. And if any one of them had not happened, we probably would have been okay. And so we got to look at each one of those to analyze it. And that's why that expert came in. And then we're going to follow up with their recommendations in terms of what kind of changes we need to make improvements in our facility, in our training, in our equipment. We've also hired an engineering firm to look at how we rebuild the warehouse and how we rebuild our packaging, how we're going to do that safer, how we're going to do that in a better way that's going to protect you guys, protect this community, protect our neighbors, protect our employees, make sure that our customers are good. So all those things are going to factor in as we go forward.
The employee that caused this, was he properly trained, do you know? Should he have reached out to somebody immediately?
Yeah, so the investigation team looked at all those details, right? So you had all kinds of issues that lined up with that Swiss cheese that day.
Swiss cheese, what are you referring to?
Well, I'm trying to say,
like, what else?
I'm trying to say there was a whole lot of things, a whole lot of things that happened that day that led to the accident.
Should maybe have been stopped if you knew a bunch of things were occurring, to maybe retrain and hold off, stop, and maybe talk with others, say, hey, we got some things occurring here, safety-wise, maybe we should address this before, something happens worse.
Yeah, that's why, it was an accident, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in hindsight,
They
yeah.
didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, it was an accident, for sure.
Well, you might want to look at your safety training.
We're getting close to our budgeted time. We had shot for about 7:30, but we can maybe stretch it for 5 or 10 minutes. Take one more, right? Your name again, sir?
Marty Schneider. Earlier you said that you guys were here for dialogue and to answer our questions, but you haven't answered one question yet. I have questions that we're asking. You're asking what you want, and answer what you want to answer. But my question is, you guys claim to care about the environment. You even sponsored Earth Cleanup Day this year. But for one, up until you got fined for it about a month ago, the place looked like a dump. There was garbage everywhere. You drive up and down the road, looked like we were, disgusting area. But anyways, why did you sue the EPA to get off the Superfund site if you care so much about the environment? Someone's got to take this one. Why?
I can't comment on that.
Why? Why wouldn't you care about the wildlife down there? Why didn't you care? But why did you sue? What about him?
To separate themselves from the national priority list is why they did it.
Why'd you sue?
So they didn't have to clean it up.
The Superfund site.
Let's let somebody.
Clean your land.
try to formulate an answer for you here.
Is it because you know that if it ever got tested again, it would be contaminated again, and then it would be proof that it's coming from your stack?
So we made a note of your question. None of us even know about the.
You don't know, you guys sued the government, you don't know that, how you guys.
The company history.
You know what happened?
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, I
Something
can.
you're gonna have to go back and ask with the
Yeah,
firm.
yeah, I made a note, it's fine.
I'm sure you'll.
I'll post it later.
Posting something.
Thank you, sir. We got somebody else over here?
Brent.
Well, come on over. The microphone's here.
Go, Bree.
You up?
I'll be quick, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm Brianne Hicks. I just wanted to ask if we could get, I wanted to kind of put in a recommendation, if we could, get a promise here now that nothing will be stored further in the Apollo warehouse, and that will no longer be used as a tier 2 chemical storage facility.
Great question, and I feel the weight of that question, and I will say yes. How's that?
All right, there you go. Who's, we got somebody else here? Who's here? Yeah, go ahead and step up. Yeah.
He's with them. He's with them. He used to work for them. He used to be with them. It's Ralph Masai, right?
You want to use this microphone? Okay.
So it's clear that there's a lot of issues here that are being talked about. Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm sorry. I'm Ralph Mosaga. I retired from Carus a couple of years ago. I worked there 25 years.
And you're still.
When I retired, I was the engineering manager. Like I said, though, it's clear there's a lot of issues. What's also clear is Carus as a company does some things really well, and I'll talk about them. And there's some things that we haven't done, or they haven't done very well.
Still on the payroll.
Dealing with you in this incident is part of that. But the reason to have the town hall meeting now is to change that. They now realize that we need to do better, Carus needs to do better, and that's the goal here. So they won't have every answer. They don't have any answers. So I got a couple answers for you. You were talking about the Superfund site. And you said we sued EPA not to be part of that. Well, that's really not the case. When the Superfund site started to become an issue, Carus, through Paul Carus at the time, cooperated with them from the very get-go and has continued to cooperate with them on Carus's part of the Superfund site.
I was told Superfund
Can you let me talk, please?
people were not even allowed on your site.
The other, so the Superfund site is in two parts. They call it OU1 and OU2.
Fucking brainwashed.
Is
You're
the
brainwashed.
whole M&H manufacturing facility. That's owned by
I got no
somebody
problem.
else, who, by the way,
No
completely
problem. No
ignored
problem
the
at all.
EPA in dealing with the
Motherfucker.
Superfund site. OU1, here's the front of it.
Wanna go?
Part
Where
of
you
the
wanna
reason
go
is
now?
because Carus
You wanna go
bought
now?
property from them years ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There's a lot more questions that you guys brought up that we have the answers for, and they have the answers.